Well, thanks for being here. You guys want to do some quick intros, and then I'll do one for myself, and we'll get going.
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Stephen Borrelli, founder and CEO at Cuts. I run a clothing business for men and women, and our tagline is we create products to inspire those to compete and win in the sport of business, which is what everyone's doing here, and I love it, and I've been at it for 6 years, and we look to build a business that can last 30 years.
I'm Todd Masonis. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Dandelion Chocolate. So we are a chocolate factory. Our business model is pretty simple. We make chocolate. People eat it. So the way to think about us is kind of like third wave coffee, but for chocolate. So we're about maybe 20, 30 years behind what happened to coffee. When we started, there were only 10 small makers in America. So normally when you go to a chocolate shop, they'll be serving chocolates, but usually they don't actually make the chocolate from the bean. So when we started, we had to go to various countries, bring back the beans, roast them up, grind them down, turn them to chocolate. We had to build our own machines, start our own sourcing. And so from the original 10 in America, now there are over 200 of us, and it's a global, huge movement, and we're kind of just getting started. We've got a couple stores in San Francisco, one in Las Vegas, a couple in Japan, and then a small online business.
Awesome. And I'm Zach, the founder and CEO of Haus. Haus is a probabilistic measurement company focused on incrementality testing, experimentation, pretty much everything in the world of third-party cookie deprecation and IDFA deprecation. Before founding the company, I was leading privacy-safe ad targeting at Google and advanced measurement and attribution there. So I worked on building a lot of these systems and just realized, like, gosh, I don't know how people are going to understand that their marketing is effective in a world where you're no longer able to track users in kind of the way we have historically. So we need to build an experimentation infrastructure that can sit on top of the first-party data stack. And which I think really ties in closely to what we're going to be talking about today. Like, how do you think about online and offline? Where there's this experience where it's kind of like online presence, you knew everything about everybody, and you could target them, and you could kind of like figure everything out. And a lot of e-commerce is moving more towards omni-channel retail. I'm really curious, like for both of you guys, both from a product standpoint, in clothing, which is like very personal, and it's how people feel, and it's how they look, and like we look good and feel good, and then really artisanal chocolate. I'm curious how you guys think about that. You guys have products that are probably best expressed in person of like, oh, I'm trying this on, or I'm using this product, but you're trying to communicate the story digitally. I'm curious if you guys like how you guys would approach this or how you thought of it.
When we think about where we want to be where our customers are. So Cuts is, we have many different locations where we put Cuts, and we're in Wayne, we're in the Four Seasons, we're in Nordstrom. Also, too, from an advertising standpoint, like what do our customers, what newsletters do they read? So focusing on where those touch points are in their everyday life, or where they may be traveling, and making sure we're always showing up in their daily lives.
Yeah, I think it's challenging. Pre-COVID, we didn't really have an online business. We sort of believed that the way people were going to experience high-end chocolate was by eating it. And we actually built a cafe that had a factory in it where you could come in and one of the few places in the world, sit down, get a hot chocolate, and watch the beans roasting. And so we really believed in experiential retail. You have to be there, you have to see it. And then COVID sort of made us rethink a lot of things because we lost all the revenue overnight, and we actually ended up turning our baristas into web developers. And we actually did the same revenue in 2020 as 2019 because we completely shifted the business. And so we sort of had to say, well, how do we marry these two worlds? And it is hard, like how do you sell something that you have to put in your mouth to understand that's any good? So what really seemed to work well for us is if we can hit these touch points, places where people have experienced our chocolate, but then maybe they're like, oh, what was the name of that company again? And then later they get hit by an ad or we get them in our newsletter. Then we sort of have a chance to continue the conversation, but we still kind of primarily think about ourselves as starting from offline and trying to figure out how to get those experiences online, as opposed to, I think some companies kind of start the other way around.
And how do you guys think about just broader storytelling online? Because if you think of, hey, these are the places where people are, but, maybe we talked about this a little bit the other day, like, there's a lot of places where you can buy chocolate bars. There's a lot of places where you can buy clothing. And you're really trying to position yourself as you've got this great products and you're trying to demonstrate kind of like a brand affinity around what you're doing. How do you think about, telling that kind of end-to-end experience, both in a digital format and then as it can relate to physical retail presences, like in a Nordstrom or in your stores?
For us, when we started the business, I was working at an advertising agency, and my boss kicked me out of a meeting and said, that t-shirt is not formal enough for the boardroom setting. And at that moment, I realized there needed to be a basic shirt, but it needed to be a brand name. So Cuts, we gave the basic shirt a brand name, and it feels something. It's a shirt that you feel confident in. And with the casualization of the workforce, Cuts. That's when Cuts really was able to come to light and scale. We've done over 250 million gross cumulative sales and continue to move and expand our product line. But it's all from that first story of wanting to service someone in that original setting. So it was storytelling and positioning the brand as clothing for the sport or business is something we always consistently do, whether it's me getting on camera in our ads or us partnering with athletes to tell their stories. It's constantly something we always think about.
I'll tell you, as a tech CEO, I love that because I show up to meetings in a hoodie and a t-shirt and just like, I assume whoever I'm meeting with will be fine. And sometimes you move into, I'll say, less mature environments where people are like kind of like living in an older era and like not understanding like, hey, like this is how I think certainly like younger folks or like a lot of people like you can be in a t-shirt or in like more casual clothing, but also very professional, taking your business seriously. So it's just very funny because like I've had that come up in my life quite a bit. What do you think of the topics?
I think for us, we think a lot about progressive disclosure. So I think about like in the tech world. In the previous life, I had a tech startup, and I feel like there was a lot of pressure to like when you get a customer to try to tell them too much all at once. But in the chocolate world, the youngest real chocolate company is Valrhona, and they celebrated their 100th birthday last year. So we're talking about companies that have been around a century or century and a half. So on that scale, it's really about like, can we be around for the next 100 years? And so in that world, it's not such a rush. It's more like you have people who walk down Valencia Street in San Francisco and saw a sign that said chocolate. And then the first time they walked in the door, all they did was like look and be confused and leave. And the next time they came in, they got to the front counter and they had a cookie. And the next time they came in, they had a sample of 70% 2-ingredient bean to bar chocolate. The next time they came in, they took a tour. And then they went with us to Origin, to Uganda or Tanzania. And then they become sort of chocolate ambassadors. And then they go online. So for us, it's really about like how do we form a really, really deep long-term relationship so it's not like super trendy, it's not super fast, it's kind of a lot longer, very meaningful.
And on that, sometimes I think building a brand, people try to get too scientific. We often do things that I personally just think are really cool, and not try to overthink it and try to put it in a Venn diagram. It's like, this cohort of customers would think it's cool. One of the examples of that is Walker Buehler. He's a pitcher for the Dodgers, and he was a big fan of Cuts. He came into our office when I was a one-man shop, and he said, hey, let's make him a pair of Jordan sneakers, put cleats on them, and put our fabric in the shoe, and then have him pitch like one inning with him. And we ended up doing it with a guy on the Yankees and the Dodgers on the same day. And we made t-shirts, but we did it with shoes, and it was just something we thought was cool. And the campaign like went viral, and Hypebeast and all these other, we got a bunch of earned media value. And it's all because we thought it was cool, and so did one of our athletes and celebrities at the time, and we didn't overthink it. So I think, fast forward 6 years, we often get stuck in, overthinking, and I think that's like a pandemic within brand building, especially as you get certain size, is you're overthinking things. And so we often start every meeting with, what are we not doing? Like a simple question, like, what are we not doing that we want to do? And I think that often will lead you towards getting to, breaking through the noise and being able to truly understand like, what you need to do to be successful.
It's funny, I mean, even like from a product management standpoint at our company, we start from what do we not want to do? Like what are the things that we do not do as a business, and then we'll kind of tailor the experience around it. It's also funny where I completely agree with you. It's like, even as like the data measurement guy, that will get you so far. But I think that if you really want kind of transformational experiences, like I think data is helpful for like, how do we make it 10% better? How do we make it 5% better? Like how do we improve things both in the margins and take really big leaps? But it'll never replace like doing an activation with athletes that's really just like, what is the coolest thing we could do with this brand? And I think you have such kind of autonomy to do that. Like, the other side of me is like, hey, in a perfect world, you can measure if it worked or not. But still, like, it shouldn't be the kind of like the focus of idea generation. On that kind of just like broader, like much more abstract for you guys, I'm curious, like, what are the top 3 things you guys are thinking about as you're looking to grow your brands in 2024, 2025? Like, what are the things that keep you up at night, or the things that you're most excited about? What are kind of like the big things that you spend an outsized share of your time thinking about?
people, places, and products. I think even before like whether you increase spend or add another channel, for us you can add people, which for us this year is women's. Places, which is selling on Amazon or finding doing our own retail. We have one store, we're launching 4 more. So things like that, where you, and then also launching international right now, which is huge for us. So just kind of thinking about those 3 buckets, and then you layer on, okay, for international, do we want to what spend and what channels do we want to advertise on? And I think that's been one of the big lessons for me, because ultimately through how we originally grew thus far is just adding spend and adding channels. But when you take a step back, you can grow more just by adding a different product to that same customer list.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think we have all sorts of tactical challenges around what are the products we're making or how are we marketing them. But I think like fundamentally the question that really keeps us up at night is, if all we do is grow and become industrial chocolate, then we didn't accomplish anything. So it's like, how do we always make sure that we're doing the right things for the right reason, even though it's really hard? So there's so many times in our business where it's like, if we just added cocoa butter, we'd make 10 times more money. If we just changed our packaging or changed things we don't compromise on, we never really tend to compromise on things. And so it's really that question of like, how do we continue to scale craft, and how do we do all that without compromising our integrity? And that's kind of like the fundamental question for us. If we really want to build a long-standing big company, then like, how do we do it for the right reasons?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different. But when I was thinking about quitting my job at Google and founding our company, the place I just started was I just wanted to build a product that if I were in your guys' shoes, I would use. I was like, what is the best way to do this? That if I were a customer, I'd be like, oh, this is exactly what I want. And I think like as you think about that in of what is cool to you, or like what are kind of like your standards, because I think in the short term there's kind of things every business can do to like take a shortcut that doesn't represent your brand long term, and I think it's sort of like robbing yourself later. It's something that can feel good in the short term, but you kind of like pay for it. Like, sorry, I say this a lot at our company. It's just like you can pay now for decisions, you can pay later for decisions. You always pay. So it's funny to hear that, because I definitely like. There's so many things we could do that would make people happy in the short term, but they wouldn't be as happy with the results in the long term, or something would go wrong, and I think it'd be a little bit challenging.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I think during the pandemic, when we had to make a lot of really quick, hard decisions, we really talked a lot about withdrawing from the brand bank and just being like, okay, right now we've got to make some things work, and like really, really focus on getting our products out, and just like really trying to make sure we stuck around. But yeah, I mean, I think there's really different reasons why people start companies. Some people do it because they want to make money, or there's a market opportunity. And sometimes companies started just because like you want to do something awesome in the world. And I feel like those different companies have different reasons for being, different approaches and different ideas. And that was like, there are easier ways to make money in Silicon Valley than the chocolate factory. But so you really have to want to do something kind of cool for the world.
Steven, you mentioned this, but I'm curious. Like, you guys have one physical location, I believe in New York, right?
Yep.
I've walked by it many times. Actually, I own some Teslas, I didn't tell you, but AO shirts. But just curious, like, how did you guys decide to end up to create 4 more stores? Like, what did that expansion story look?
We started with our top zip codes and said, okay, there's 2 ways to look at retail. 1, you can open up new zip codes and expand your product, or 2, you can increase your LTV with being in their zip codes and be where they are. For us as a bootstrap business, have never raised money. We wanted to maximize our chance of being successful. So we went to Bleecker, which the West Village specifically is the most dense cuts shoppers in the U.S. So that's how we launched.
And in terms, like, just curious, like, as you guys are branching international, was there anything around country selection, or was it more? Any thoughts on like how you decided to go the international route, or which countries specifically you were looking to target?
One of the more tactical things that we've done recently is we started from a Facebook account. Each country has its own ad account and its own pixel, and it kind of goes against what Meta tells you is to do right. But as a brand, you're able to like segment it, and then you can get the ads in different languages, and all of those little things like make a big difference over time. So treating the international campaigns as their own business units has really helped us. We learned that when we launched Women's, Facebook was like, no, just add a different campaign in the Facebook account. But then when the data was all mixed up and we created its own business unit, and the brand started taking off. So now even for certain different products, we're creating its own pixel. Truly, we learned its own have its own data coming out.
Completely makes sense. Yeah, if you think of like, if you just kind of like lump everything into one conversion optimization algorithm, you're not gonna get the equal distribution of everything that you want. You might find that like certain categories are failing and you think they should be doing well, and it's just because like women's might be a smaller brand among the other things that you're doing, and it just gets drowned out. So having its own optimization totally makes sense. Todd, I'm curious for you, like kind of, like you almost went the other route of like very physical location, moving a little bit more digitally. How do you think about what that kind of evolution is going to look like over the next 5 years?
It's a good question. I think for us, like because to have a full experience, you also have to offer like a cafe experience with drinks and pastries. That creates certain challenges around. You don't want to have one store in one city. You really want to kind of have a shared commissary kitchen, or you want to share logistics and shipping and expiring product. So we have these sort of like slight market effects we have to keep in mind, which is why, like, as we've done a lot of experiments, we're trying to go deeper in like San Francisco, and then we did a little beachhead in New York to try it out, and then it's like, okay, well, for this to work, we really need like 4 stores. We really have to do it the right way. A lot of logistics challenges. But I mean, it's great to have stores. It's like how our customers learn about us, and it's how people form a really deep, long-lasting relationship, which then I think makes it a lot easier to sell online or in another store, just because people have tried it.
We've had a couple of really fun store activations. Mariano Rivera, he's a closer for the Yankees, and he helped us launch our store. He like cut the ribbon, and we had 4 blocks of lines to meet him, and everyone got the first 300 people got a free shirt. And it was so cool to just talk, to see the different cohorts of customers. The early customers were the ones, the more students in the area that were coming for the free shirt, that really wanted to get a photo with Mariano. Later in the afternoon, we had the guys wearing their Rolexes with their girlfriends. And then, later in the day, we had maybe the families and the dads coming in that, just got to the store before it closed. And, I would sit there and just watch and talk to the customers. And, there's an invaluable lesson when you can physically see your customers as a brand owner. Because, we've sold millions of units, but oftentimes we never see the units. They're at a 3PL. We're in an office in LA, and we don't get to touch and feel it. To see the customers put it on has given us good insights into what maybe future things we can do. And even though online we hope to keep at least 70% of our business, I think being physical is like, from a branding standpoint, it's something that gets me most excited. And specifically around events, when the UFC came to New York, Michael Chandler launched his tequila brand at our store. And again, we had a bunch of lines. One made for a ton of content. Everyone that wasn't there was like, holy crap, Cuts is the best. They had another line. And just getting to juice that a little bit was a lot of fun. And for me, as a brand owner, those were some of my most favorite days. One, everyone wants to take photos and stuff, that feels good. But just getting to connect and have a place to do it that's yours is very valuable.
I think that's like a great kind of segue. I'm curious, like, how do you guys stay close to your customers? Like in a world where even like in your stores, like, how do you try to get experiences from them or get information out? You guys have like ever heard of something called the Mom Test? It's a book of just like how do you collect feedback from customers, and like you ask somebody about the shirts, they're like, oh, I love the shirts, of course, Steven, like these are great. But like ultimately, like you want a really honest feedback with them, like, hey, you didn't like the fit of this type, like what can we do about it? Or like, hey, like people didn't like this type of cookie, like how do you guys think about incorporating that into like, because I totally agree, like there's going to be times where you have this like defined thing where, oh, I can get feedback now. Like, is there anything you guys are thinking about, like how to make it like, a week-to-week, day-to-day, or month-to-month occurrence?
We have a Discord that's got 4,000 super fans. And part of one of the rewards of being in the Discord, once a month, I add 30 members that get to do some trial and error stuff for us. So we'll send SKUs to, or we'll just say, hey, go in your closet, pick out stuff, and report back on it. And I'll do a Zoom once a month and just ask them honest questions. Hey, we just released this, here are the colors. And one of the things we learned is we were releasing 2, after 6 years, you start to release colors that are the same. And a lot of the customers weren't buying because they thought it was too similar of colors, even though in HQ, we know the colors were, from 4 seasons ago. We use the data to tell us, hey, go back into that color. But a lot of them weren't buying. So that lower cohort of customers was not able to purchase, and they wanted new things. We caught fit issues, or we need to make the length of our pants longer. And it serves as two things. The super fans get a story, hey, once a month, 30 people get to talk to the founder of Cuts, and they get to really touch and feel me in a way. as well as we get good feedback on maybe where our shortcomings are. It's one of my favorite things we do once a month.
I love it.
It's
It's
awesome.
so cool. Yeah.
Pretty similar. I mean, I think for retail, we're just there all the time. I mean, we have a store in the Venetian, the lobby, if anyone wants to check it out. I was there yesterday, I was there today, just hanging out for a half hour, an hour, just like seeing what's happening when people walk in. And you get a lot of theories about things, but if you just sit there and see, are people confused? They like things. Why are they walking? Where are they going? Like, I think, and obviously, it's really nice to have our factory where people can come every day, so that we can just see what's happening. And then obviously we do things like every night, all the guest care people and all the retail associates all fill out forms that we notice issues. We try to get those to the sort of the product team as quickly as possible. We're always trying to fix issues. We're really trying to get that like feedback cycle really, really tight, and just like if things come up, we want to know about it. We want to fix it. And then obviously all sorts of analytics and things like that. But I think like the analytics are really important, but there's no substitute for just sitting there and seeing what's happening.
I love finding customers in the airport, or last night I was out and this girl was, she mentioned cuts to someone else and didn't know as the founder. We were getting to talk about it, and it's always fun just to go up to customers when you see them and try to just ask, hey, you like cuts? Tell me a little bit about it. Those are some of my favorite interactions.
Yeah, there's a Jeff Bezos quote that's when the anecdotes and the data disagree, the anecdotes are usually right. And I think that holds certainly a lot of truth with me. So I guess one other thing I'm curious, like just in the world of measurements, I have to ask, like, how do you guys think about measuring kind of the activities that you're driving? Like, it could be in any form. It could be whether it's like advertising or marketing effectiveness. It could also just be in like when you're thinking about like new product launches, like a new types of product that you're launching. How do you guys think about like institutionalizing around the data of, these are the things that are good, we should try to double or triple down. If you think about it expressed through like this asymptote or like a diminishing return curve, like how do you like try to anticipate where you might be on that and either like run experiments to try and adjust it or kind of, be a little bit more anecdotal?
So we do some of that. We like to be more. I think for us, like the problem's actually been even like we've challenged that we make chocolate, we make chocolates, we make confections, we make cakes, we sell them online, we sell them wholesale, we sell them retail. So we have a lot of different. The business is small and complex, and so we really had to have a full data stack where we basically use best-of-breed software from all the different, this point of sale, this Shopify, this wholesale, this warehouse management system, and then build a data warehouse where we're just pulling all the data. We get it normalized, we get it materialized, all the buzzwords, we do all that. And then the thing that really worked well for us is just kind of democratize that data and get it to the point where whoever's running any part of the company just gets a daily dashboard or email with every part of the business that's relevant to them, kind of in like a really salient, simple way. So it's like you don't spend time dealing with all the complexity. You just have like the simple truth about what's working and what's not working. And then, if you're on the online team, you're trying to get online stats. And if you're in stores, you get store stats. If you're doing products, you get product stats. So that's been very interesting for us.
Yep. There's oftentimes I feel like, wow, we have so much data, where do I go? Because e-commerce, every customer touch point is tracked. I think when we started really segmenting the data points into like departments, that's when it was one layer deeper. That's when we really started to see progress. And as an owner, understanding, okay, if you're the head of marketing or the head of retention or the retail person, what am I going to keep them accountable for? Is where we started to see a lot of gains from. And I think as a founder, that's where I need to be the best. I need to really make sure what is the piece of value that each one of those people needs to focus on. Because if I'm not kind of pressing my thumb just enough, then a lot of times then things get slipped through the cracks. So they're focusing on the wrong attribution or data point that cannot lead to progress. And more importantly than just the data point is the actions that you're going to get out of it. So often you see all this data and you discuss it, but what are the actions and what worked actually based on those actions? So having follow-up meetings is really important, and a bias towards action. Hey, let's just try stuff.
Yep.
The attribution may not be perfect, but let's try it.
I love that. I think framing experiments and framing data through a decisioning framework of like, if it goes this way, this is what we're going to do. If it goes that way, this is what we're going to do. Then when people just get data and like, oh, this is interesting, kind of leads to nowhere. So with that, any questions from the group? Otherwise, we're right about on time.
I cannot believe we just got through a whole session with a chocolatier and didn't mention Willy Wonka at all. kind of disappointed I didn't see a purple hat. No, really, really fantastic session. Thank you, Jackson.